Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Mark Anthony. Mark, let's start by talking a bit about yourself, your journey, what you're doing, and then we'll get into your creative strategy.
Perfect. Yeah, my name is Mark. I'm 28 years old. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I actually moved to Phoenix back in 2014. Previous, I grew up in Boston. I was actually in school. I was playing football at Boise State, studying construction management and architecture, and doing all sorts of network marketing, affiliate marketing, multi-level marketing, basically anything I could do to try to make some money while I was in my dorm rooms in college, pretty much. And right when I finished up school, was trying to look for career paths down, the architecture route, construction management, all kinds of stuff. I had an interior design associate's degree and really couldn't find anything. And I was just finding, just regular jobs that are out there, Five Guys, McDonald's, stuff like that. And I really wanted to stay in kind of my entrepreneurial. Once, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, oh, now there's no turning back of going the employee route.
Yeah.
So from Rich Dad Poor Dad, I kind of picked up real estate investing, and I got into that, tried wholesaling for a couple of years. You know how tough that is and competitive. And then I ended up moving to Arizona, and it got really competitive. I did a wholesale here. I ended up moving to Nashville for a few months. My aunt had back surgery. And so I went out there to kind of just help her out for a few months, did a wholesale and duplex out there, came back to Phoenix and tried to get the ball rolling again. And I went to a meetup, and there was a guest speaker there saying that she was her 18th month in the real estate business and was doing about 60 grand a month, 18 months in. And I was just like, I can't believe it.
Wow. Yeah.
How? And she went into explaining how she seller financed mobile homes, both ones that are in parks and then ones that are in land, but primarily ones in parks. And that just kind of like blew my mind. And I was like, hey, this is exactly what I've been trying to do in with single family homes, both wholesaling, seller financing, all these things. With single family homes with $100,000, $200,000 homes. And essentially here I can do the same thing with a $2,500 home, a $5,000 home, and get the same residual income essentially. And it just blew me away. And I dove in. The next day, I went out and did my first walkthrough on a mobile home.
Yeah.
I was super nervous. In Boston, we don't have mobile home parks or trailer parks.
No.
So I called a few of my friends, my girlfriend, my mom. I was like, hey, you guys have to come with me to do this inspection on a home. And they're like, yeah, you've been trying to do this real estate thing for 2 years. What do you need us for? Like,
yeah.
And I didn't want to tell them. I was like, hey, I'm going into a trailer park. I'm scared. And so I was just trying to keep it hush hush until like we finally got there. I finally revealed what was going on.
Yeah. And
so I got the home. The guy was selling it for $1,200. I gave him like $200 down, and I was going to give him more money Friday because that's all I brought with me. Yep. And this was like a Tuesday. And by the next day, I already had that home sold for $5,000 with $1,500 down. And from there, it was just a go. That was kind of just really broke the ice. And from there, I started getting into more mobile homes, doing auctions, repossessing people's mobile homes who didn't pay either their lot rents for their park fees. Yep. They didn't pay their personal property taxes if they owed taxes on their vehicle, their mobile home, or if they were behind on mortgages and other things like that, and got into repossessing homes that way, which led me into a few sticky situations with park managers. Them not being too friendly, them kind of being jealous that I would get homes for $5, $10 and sell them for 20, 30 grand. And so they weren't approving people who I would send in for applications because the people have to get approved by the park to live in the community. And they were just denying everybody months, people with 800 credit scores, retired people with all kinds of retirement income, credit, had it all.
Yeah.
And I was denying everybody just because they didn't want me to sell the home. And it ended up forcing me to get into the business of moving homes. So from that point on,
Oh,
I started transporting homes.
yeah.
And then I came across pretty much everybody that was buying homes from me wanted their home moved to some land that they bought. Like average in Arizona, like typical buyer was a Mexican family
Yeah.
that saved up, 40, 50, 60 grand, bought a piece of land, bought a trailer, and wanted the home moved to their land so they could have their own little American dream. And that was pretty much like my staple customer for about 4 years. And we did about 300 homes like that. Before we realized, hey, maybe we should just start buying the land and doing it
Yeah.
ourselves
Yeah.
and then selling it to these people and renting it and doing some kind of like a BRRR, like a buy, rent, rehab, refinance, repeat. But
Yeah.
we kind of revamped it with the mobile homes, and we would buy the land, repossess a mobile home, relocate the mobile home, reattach it to a new piece of land, and then rent it. And kind of made our own version of the BRRRR with mobile homes and with repossessing and relocating them. And since then, we've done over 2,000 deals since 2015, and
Yeah.
have pretty much taken it nationwide
Yeah. That's
across the states.
awesome. You drew up a whole bunch of questions. So what does it cost to move a mobile home, and like what's involved in that? You just buy a transport truck and you lift it up, or what's involved in this thing? What's your like hard costs to do something like that?
Yeah, so most of the costs when it comes to used homes comes down to disassembling the mobile home, taking apart,
Like,
turning it into a mobile home again, putting it on wheels. If it's a double wide, splitting it in half. So we deal primarily with double wides because we deal with families. So they love the 3-bed, 2-bath, the 4-bed, 2-bath. So we don't touch anything unless it's that. So we always have to split homes in half. So most of the costs actually come from what does it take to get this home split in half? How many days is there? Carport awnings on both sides, patios, decks, screened in decks. Are there trees around the home that we got to remove? In Arizona, they set the homes in the ground. So they'll dig like a 4-foot hole, and set the home in the ground and then pour concrete around it.
Oh God, that might be hard to get out then.
Yeah. So you got to remove all that in some cases. So a lot of the times the cost comes down to that. When it comes down to the actual transporting, like how many miles, we usually include 100 miles in our transport flat fee, just up front. The distances and the driving is actually the easy part. It's taking it apart that's hard.
Makes sense.
And then when it comes to installing it, it's fairly easy. The biggest component is, do they need a septic tank and do they need a well, or is it city water and city sewer? And that's really the big determining factor on the cost on the install.
Yeah.
And
you sub that out, I guess.
no, we do that all ourselves now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Just to protect our timelines.
Yeah, exactly. Makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
For repoing, like I'm guessing you're buying properties that are behind or something like that in order to have the ability to repo. I was like, legally, like how you do that, because you're probably just buying like liens, right, that are on properties.
Absolutely. So there's primarily pretty much two types of liens. There's a tax lien.
Yeah.
Not every state has personal property taxes. So some states, they don't have taxes on any type of personal property, whether it's like an RV, a boat, a motorcycle, or a vehicle. Some states do. So Arizona is a state that does have personal property taxes. So when those people get behind, a lot of the times people don't even know that those exist. And they'll buy a home, and then 4 years later, they've never paid a single tax bill. And then they find out their home gets repoed. Or they have an orange sticker on their door, like a tow sticker on their front window.
Oh God.
And so a lot of times we'll go through those. Sometimes we'll help the people finance their home back. If it's a situation, sometimes depending on how the bid works, the county can only keep the lien amount. So if it's sold over that amount, the remaining goes to the person who lost the home. So they can either use that to buy the home back, or they can use that to go move in to a new place and just on to the next phase of life. Now, the other type of auction are landlord liens. And this is when the people don't pay their lot rent for their park pad fee, which is like for trash, sewer, water, sometimes electric. Some communities include electric, some don't. And then park amenities, whether it's like a gated park, whether they have like a dog park, pools, a community stuff center with a shuffleboard and bingo and all that other stuff. That's usually what the lot rents include. Now, typically they're around like $300 to $400 a month.
Yeah.
Past 3-4 years, with all these new apartments being built, all these new houses being flipped and fixed, and investors renting houses, the parks have had to raise rents to match the market. So now rents are going as high as, sometimes $800 in some of the best 5-star high-end communities.
Yeah.
Which is really high for most of the country now. In California,
yeah, because you're not
that's pretty low.
In most cases, I guess you're not paying for the property. Like usually the tenants own the property and you're paying for the pad and basically HOA, right? They're basically paying for the community. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now those community fees are getting upwards to what used to be $400 when they first moved there, say 10 years ago. Say it's a 55 retirement community.
Yeah.
These people retired from Canada, Michigan, Minnesota. Some are cold, and they come here for the winter, and they buy this essentially a winter home that costs them $250, $300 a month. And now 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, it's $800 a month, and now it's just out of their budget.
Okay. Yeah.
And sometimes people can sell them, but a lot of times it can be hard, especially when they live out of state, or if they buy older homes that just don't have really good resale value. And then there's times where people just don't know about it, or they, other circumstances, then they just let them go. So we try to do as much as we can before the auction to stop them to get going to auction, to try to help people see if there's a way we can provide a loan, or if we can sell this home for you or buy it from you, or fourth case, it just goes to auction and we get it that way.
Yeah, because you think about, like, I can't see that these are really expensive liens that are even put on these properties, right? Like, you think that they could go to a bank or find some way to pay them off, or even, if someone like you stepped in to, finance it back to them, or, just to keep them.
We've even seen people open up GoFundMe's, because some of these tax amounts, so for one of the tax auctions that we got back in 2019, just before the 4th of July, this is actually famous. It made the news nationally. It was an auction on June, right before the 4th of July, like a week or two.
Yeah.
The home was owned by a disabled veteran. He didn't finish his paperwork. He didn't fill out his exemption form. 3 years went by. They kept sending him reminders to fill out your exemption form, fill out your exemption form, fill out your exemption form. He refused to fill out exemption form, so he wasn't exempt from taxes. Right. His home went up to auction for $230 something, and it got sold for $250. And that home ended up being sold for 52 grand.
Oh.
And it made the news everywhere. He got a GoFundMe and ended up raising enough money to buy the house back. And, if he just taken that action step earlier, he could have just got $250 from a GoFundMe and saved it, or, used one of our options, our loan options, or there's a bunch of stuff he could have did. But yeah, it happens. I mean, when we first started going to the tax auctions, the way that the auctions were handled were there was an opening bid, and if nobody bidded on the opening bid, the auctioneer would cut the bid amount in half. If nobody bid again, the auctioneer would cut the bid and start the bid all the way down at $1 and open it up bids at $1, and that's where they started. So we were going in, getting houses for less than $10, in most cases for years and years, until other people just started showing up to the auctions and just bidding them up.
So with all this COVID, is these auctions still in person, or do they do any of these online now?
No, they're actually still in person.
Really? Okay. So I know some of the liens in certain states have switched to an online forum. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Now they did shut them down for a little while during lockdown, but as soon as lockdown was lifted, they started right back up again.
My question about providing them a loan, right, to try and help them out, to protect yourself. So you're holding the lien, they're paying off the lien, they're not paying off a mortgage. So You're not governed by Dodd-Frank. You don't have to deal with that.
That is one of the biggest things, because when I first started this business, I was doing strictly seller financing, and I got nailed with Dodd-Frank with 83 homes. I had $115,000 in my bank account that was seized by the IRS, and 40 grand residual every month that was frozen for 10 months that couldn't get direct deposited into my account, because I essentially just went to the bank to get a business loan. They wanted to see my collateral, my assets, and I was like, oh, perfect, sweet. I have all these notes. I've been working for so long to get up these 83 notes. I was so excited. And they're like, oh, sweet, where's your MLO? Where's your license? And I was just like, my license? What license? And right then they just froze my account, contact the IRS, tried to see my taxes, and they seized everything that was in my account. And it took me about 10 months to clean it up, to rewrite all those notes with an MLO, and just to get everything reset. It took a while, but we got it figured out.
Yeah. Did you have to go get the license or anything like that?
No, I found a licensed MLO here locally that I worked with and went through them.
Use them as like a broker sort of, or an agent.
Yeah, it was actually a title company that I used here. They had one in office, and it worked out really well.
Oh, maybe we should say what Dodd-Frank is.
So
some people are like probably going, what are they talking about?
Yeah, so Dodd-Frank and the Consumer Protection Safety Act is basically an act that protects consumers against unlicensed mortgage practitioners. So basically each state has their own regulations on how much interest can be charged on a home loan. And that person has to also be licensed if they're going to be charging. Now, there's two exceptions on when somebody can seller finance. And those exceptions are if the person is selling to an investor. So if an investor is buying the property, then they're not a consumer. So Dodd-Frank and the Consumer Protection Safety Act doesn't apply to an investor, and if an investor is buying. Or if the person is selling their own personal primary residence, one they actually lived in personally, like they brushed their teeth in, tied their shoes, their taxes came there, their mail. It's not a rental property. It's not a vacation property. It's their primary residence. In that case, they can seller finance their home. Any other case, they would have to use a mortgage loan originator.
Yeah, and where this comes into all kinds of businesses, like turnkey operators, what they can charge you. It's one reason that a lot of the hard money lenders will not lend to that. They ask you if you're going to live in the house because they don't want to deal with Dodd-Frank. It's the background reason why a lot of the stuff is all for investors and not for people living in the house, because it's all these rules they have to go by then.
So we got really lucky with the mobile homes because what we ended up doing is put these all in personal property trusts. So since it's considered personal property, we could put a personal property lien on that personal property trust and have it act almost like a mechanic's lien instead of a mortgage lien. And since it's personal property, it was kind of like a gray area. Yeah. Because that personal property could be, your grandma's pearl necklace. It could be a quilt. It could be collection cards. Personal property can be considered anything. So it was a really kind of gray area where we're able to wiggle through the fine line and make it work with that.
Yeah. I got one last question. So off the start, you were talking about that basically a flip. You bought for $1,200, $200 down, and you sold for $5K. So that's a flip. You said sometimes you BRRRR these. Like how do you set that up? Yeah.
So in that case, I got $1,000 down from that buyer, and then I did payments on the rest.
So $1,000 down. So now you're really almost out of it because you bought it for $1,200.
Yep.
And okay, then continue.
So then she rolled the remaining $4,000 over 24 months. So she paid me monthly. It was like $250 a month, something around there.
Something. Well,
yeah. For about 24 months, and I think it was about like 160, 170, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Some of the months she paid more, some months she paid less. I was pretty flexible on that one with my first one. But when I got into it later, typically after that deal, I started doing bigger deals where I was selling homes for $20,000, $30,000 with $5,000 down, $10,000 down. And then I was using those down payments to go buy more homes at auctions and then sell those on payments, and then use those down payments to go buy more homes and then sell those on payments. So it worked out really well compared to like single family homes where you got to build up 100,000 or 200,000 in order to purchase a property to get into it. With these mobile homes, you're able to do it with like $2,500, 5,000. I was able to use my deposits to go and purchase new homes, and just pretty much seller finance the rest at first. Yeah. Until, I got caught up with Dodd-Frank. Then after that, I got into the land and started moving into the land. Yeah. At that point, then was when we started renting them out. We would keep them take out mortgages on them ourselves.
You can get a mortgage on those.
Yeah. There's actually, it's actually really easy, especially if you're in communities like rural communities just outside of major cities where there's, farms. Almost every home in some communities just out, like within the 20 to 50 mile range from big cities, is usually all manufactured homes, mobile homes on land, all the farm homes, all those. So we'll target areas like that it's already going on where there's, and what we typically do is we'll just find the oldest and smallest one that we can find, rip it off since it already has the utilities there, and just replace it with the biggest and newest one we can find. And then find the local credit union. Credit unions are amazing with getting loans on these. When it comes to the big three, the big banks, they're almost impossible unless it's a brand new home straight out of the factory, like straight out the factory, from the factory to the land. That's usually the only way that you can get a traditional mortgage on them. And it's not so much the mortgage company, it's the insurance companies that the mortgage requires. The insurance companies are kind of sticklers when it comes to insuring these mobile homes, whether they're in a flood zone, whether the snow roof ratings proper for that area, the wind ratings proper for that area, because with mobile homes, they can build to different ratings of wind resistance and snow resistance for both the walls and the roof. So depending on what zone they build that house, kind of depends on where they can put it. Different areas will need higher zones because they need more snow, more wind, and then on from there. So and then the flood zones. So with the insurance companies, they're pretty sticklers when it comes down to that. But once you get through that, you get all the pre-qualifications for what the insurance companies need in order for it to get mortgaged. It gets really easy just to pick the right houses to purchase, to put in the right areas to get loans against them. I guess the only tricky part is getting FHA loans. And the only way to get FHA loans is if you order a brand new home straight out the factory, which in some areas can work really well. In some areas, I get over $200 a square foot for trailers, and they build them for $50 to $70 a square foot. So there's amazing amounts of spread. It's really just finding those locations, and then finding the insurance companies and the banks that will lend on them, and then basically just build around their qualifications. Right. So you're basically just starting with the lender, starting with the insurance company, starting with the planning and zoning county, and figure out, because some counties will even have zoning ordinances saying that homes can't be older than 5 years, so they have to be 2016 or newer. I've had tons of homes where people bought from me, 1980s homes, 1990s, had it moved to the land, to find out they couldn't get permits for it because it was too old for that city ordinance, where 20 miles down the street they can put whatever they want there. But in this specific, or this HOA community, or this specific city ordinance, there's different rules. So once you figure out all that out, it gets really easy. You almost kind of just have to pick the home last. You find the land, find the bank, the insurance, zoning and planning, and the last thing you do is find the home. What's the home that's going to work best for right here. So we were able to take out a lot of pretty much mortgages on every home that we get. And then from that point, we rent them out to pay down the mortgage loans, and then use the mortgage to go buy more land.
That's awesome. I love this. This is exciting stuff. Mark, if people wanted to get a hold of you, I don't know if you do any coaching, or if anyone has had a question for you, what's the best way to track you down?
Yeah, we have a mobile home investing academy called Trailer Cash Academy. You can find us on YouTube, essentially everywhere. Also on Facebook, Mark Anthony, or Instagram, the period top tier. Same with LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Mark Anthony, or through Trailer Cash Academy on YouTube. We have tons of content on YouTube, tips and tricks. We have about 200 testimonies of students doing their first deal and kind of what they've learned to accomplish their first deal. So tons of free nuggets there on how to help people kind of get through their first deal through all of our different testimonies. Tons of information.
That's awesome. I'll put some of that stuff in the show notes for people to track you down easily.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on the show, Mark. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you for having me.